my dear students, welcome back to our English class, and I'm your English teacher Shantipriya. Today I'm going to narrate you an inspirational story about Prashant. Prashant belonged to Orissa. In October 1999, a cyclone hit Orissa very badly, devastating hundreds of villages. Prashant had to spend 2 days on the rooftop. On the third day, he set out his journey to meet his family. Did he meet his family? What happened to him? What are the difficulties he faced on his way? Let's travel with him and find out. Before that, let us have a look at the overview of the lesson. We will be going through this lesson in 4 parts. First one is the summary of the lesson. Second one is think about it. Later we get talk about it. And the last one is suggested reading activity. Before going into the summary of the lesson, let's look at the learning objectives of this lesson. By the end of the lesson, you will be able to describe the impact of super cyclone on Ersama and its aftermath. Recognize the courage and bravery exhibited by Prashant during the calamity. Summarize the steps taken by Prashant to rescue and help the survivors of the super cyclone. Explain the importance of forming a community of workers during a calamity. Express gratitude towards individuals who selflessly serve their community in times of need. State the significance of volunteering and working together for the betterment of society. Describe the role of NGOs in providing aid and support to those affected by natural calamities. Let's know more about our author, Harsh Mandar. Harsh Mandar is an activist and author of several books including Fractured Freedom, Chronicles from India's Margins. He is the director of the Center for Equity Studies, a research organization based in New Delhi, a social activist who works with survivors of mass violence and hunger, as well as homeless persons and street children. Let's know about the context of the lesson. Weathering the Storm in Ersama by Harsh Mandar is based on a true story of the adventures of a teenager, Prashant, who was marooned on the roof of a house for 2 nights following the dreadful storm that hit Orissa on 27th October 1999. The storm had killed thousands of people and devastated hundreds of villages. Prashant showed extraordinary courage at the face of the great natural calamity. He saved his own life and came in the forefront to lead the disaster management in his village. Students, get ready with your textbooks. Now we look into the lesson. Before going into the summary of the lesson, I will make you read one paragraph from the lesson and you will read along with me. Come on, let's start. Students, open lesson number 6, Weathering the Storm in Ersama. I will be giving you a model reading and you should read along with me. Let's read the first para from the lesson. On 27th October 1999, 7 years after his mother's death, Prashant had gone to the block quarters of Ersama, a small town in coastal Orissa, some 18 kilometers from his village, to spend the day with a friend. In the evening, A dark and menacing storm quickly gathered. Winds beat against the houses with a speed and fury that Prashant had never witnessed before. Okay, students, now let's move on to the summary of the lesson. Our story or lesson, Weathering the Storm in Ersama, it's not a fictional story. It's a real life experience while the cyclone hit Orissa in October 1999 that killed thousands of people and devastated hundreds of villages. This is a story of a teenage boy, Prashant, who went to his friend's house, which was located in Ersama on 27th October 1999. So it was 7 years after his mother's death, this boy went to meet his friend in Ersama. While he was staying in Ersama, in the evening, they witnessed a superstorm. You all know what is a storm. See, storm is a violent disturbance of the atmosphere with strong winds, usually rain, thunder, etc., which disturbs the lives of people. Heavy and incessant rain filled the darkness, and many ancient trees were uprooted and crashed to the earth. People went screaming out of the houses because water was entering their houses, and even the waters entered into the Prashant's friend's house too. Prashant's friend's house, it was a building made of brick and mortar. It was very strong to sustain the high speed of wind, which was blowing with the speed of 350 kilometers per hour. But what happened is a heavy tree got uprooted and this tree fell on the roof of the Prashant's friend's house. Sometime in the middle of the night, damaging its roofs and walls. There was continuous rain for the next 36 hours. Now, Prashant and his friend's family, they somehow took shelter on a rooftop and they spent whole 2 nights in the rooftop. They did not have any food to eat. They could get some tender coconuts which have fallen on them. They have survived on the coconuts. They froze in the cold and continuous rain. It was really a dreadful experience for the Prashant. Prashant could see in the grey light of the early morning the destruction caused by the super cyclone. Morning, what they saw were the devastating views of water everywhere. Many houses have fallen down, but some houses which were built with cement have stood here and there. And they could see the bloated animal carcasses, dead bodies of animals, and even some humans floating in the water everywhere. Prashant was worried about his family, but he was helpless because he was unable to go to the village and meet his family because he was completely on the rooftop and water has filled all the place. 2 days later, the rain stopped and the level of the water started decreasing. Now Prashant wanted to start his journey to his village to meet his family. What he did is he took a long sturdy stick and he started his difficult journey to his village through the swollen floodwaters. At some places the water was waist deep and some places it was less deep. So he had to swim sometimes and he had to walk sometimes on his journey to his village. On his way to his village, Prashant came across many human bodies and carcasses of dogs, goats, and cattle all over the water. So sometimes he had to push them with his hand to meet the way to his village. And there were nowhere, mostly all the houses have fallen to the ground, and somewhere here and there he could see one or two houses standing. He passed through many villages to reach his own village. When he reached the village Kalikuda, he could see a widespread devastation. So there was a lot of damage to the houses and cattle and people there, and he was very much worried about his family. Was very eager to meet his family when he reached his village Kalikuda. He searched for his family all over the village, but he could not find them. He was really at the wreck of crying because he was worried if they were really surviving or dead. Fortunately, he reached one of the shelters organized by the Red Cross Society, and there he found his family alive. So he heartfully thanked God for keeping the family alive throughout this cyclone. Prashant was very excited and happy to meet his family members in the shelter. At the same time, he was very upset to see the miserable condition of the cyclone affected people in the shelter. There was a very huge crowd. People were in need of food, medicines, and whatnot. They had a lot of problems in the shelter, and they had nothing to eat. See, the shelter is just there was an accommodation where these people have gathered there, but they had nothing to eat except coconuts, and everywhere they could see the filth. Filth means a lot of garbage which has come through the flood waters, had settled around the shelter, and there was a lot of filth which was very infectious and dangerous, and it smelled very, very horrible. Prashant was really upset with all the conditions in the shelter. He could not be the silent spectator. He decided to do something for the survivors. See, those are all survivors were suffering the shelter, and everywhere filth was there, and they did not have proper food to eat. So he was a person who had some kindness and empathy towards his fellow people. This makes Prashant special than the other people. So first what he did is he made arrangements for food with the help of some youth and elders. See, he talked with some youth and the elders among the survivor, and first he organized some food for the survivors. Prashant organized a team of youth volunteers to clean the shelter, which was filled with filth, urine, vomit, and even the carcasses of animals also. Slowly, next he what he did is he cared for the wounds of the people who were suffering with diseases, wounds, or injuries. Slowly, he started making a team of people who could even treat people with their minor injuries. Hardest time was passing by, and on the fifth day, a military helicopter dropped some food parcels. So these people were very happy that they could get some food from outside, because already in the shelter, the food was not sufficient to feed all these people in the shelter. So they were very happy. But what happened is the helicopter did not return again for the food. Prashant and other volunteers, they wanted the helicopters to return again to drop food. So for that, they wanted to communicate that they were hungry. For this, they devised a plan to attract the attention of the helicopter. Say they made the children lie down on the ground and holding the empty utensils on their stomach. So this was like a clear symbol to show the people in the helicopter that the shelter people were hungry. So when this sight was observed by the people in the helicopter returned again and again, dropping sufficient food for the people in the shelter. The condition of the survivors in the shelter was getting better day by day with the efforts of Prashant. Still, Prashant had some zeal to make good arrangements so that he could provide a quality life for the survivors. What he did is he brought polythene sheets and he put up some tents and shelters for them, for the orphaned children, and he requested some people, elders, men and women, to take care of such children who had no elders with them, who had lost their parents in this cyclone. Weeks passed by, and the survivors were able to get good food and other needs for themselves. Prashant was able to recognize that the women and children were sinking in grief. Why grief? Because they have lost their loved ones, they have lost their properties, they have lost their whole lives in the cyclones. He persuaded women to start working in the Food for Work program organized by an NGO. Initially, it was government's plan to set up a separate home for widows and orphanages for children who were the survivors of the cyclone. But this plan was resisted because when they are put up separately, they are still in grief and this loneliness where they have lost his families. Eventually, what happened is an idea was brought about that uh, new foster families should be put up, should be set so that the childless widows and the children come together and they make a family. The volunteers managed to set up foster families which comprise the widows, orphan children, and lone men who could form a family and support each other. So, some foster families were made in which a family which contained an orphan child, a widowed woman, and a lone man. They could all form a foster family so that they can forget their grief and move on in their life. 6 months after the devastation of the super cyclone, now the life of the survivors had become normal. This is all because of the relentless and selfless efforts of our hero Prashant. See, Prashant is himself a victim of the cyclone. He had the scariest and the strangest and the very sickening experience of the cyclone, but still he was able to overcome his pain by helping the other people overcome their pain. Thus, Prashant became the survivor of the thousands of cyclone affected people. His selfless service for the mankind is very much praiseworthy. See, people when they experience pain, they get just stuck in their pain and they can't even make themselves better. But here, this is the story of Prashant. It is an example for us that we can overcome our pain and we can do more to the humanity so that the society around us has a better life. This is the story of Prashant. Children, how do you feel about the character of Prashant? Let me know. Now, before going to the assessment part, let us have the glossary section where you can find the meanings of some of the words. Our first word in the glossary section is weathering. See, you find this word in the title of the lesson. Weathering is facing something. That is called as weathering. The second word is cyclone. A very strong wind and a storm is called as a cyclone. Next word is carcasses. What do you mean by carcasses? Carcasses means dead bodies of animals. The next word is desperate. You feel desperate when you face some problems. That is, you feel hopeless. Desperate is hopeless. The next word is volunteer. Volunteer is a person who works without any desire for financial gains. He does not expect any profit. He simply works for the service of the other people. Is devastation. Devastation means destruction or damage. Our next word would be catastrophe. Catastrophe is a disaster. It means a disaster. Next, triumphant. Triumphant is nothing but victory or success. The next word is filth. That means dirt or garbage. The next word is darkest hour. Darkest hour is the time when you're facing a lot of difficulties or problems, or when you're facing the worst phase of life. That is called as the darkest hour. We come to the end of the summary of the lesson. Let's move on to the next part, assessment. Get ready, children. Welcome to the assessment part, students. I want you to read the question and all the given options thoroughly and answer the questions. Let's see how many of the questions you get right. Let us start. The first question is, when did the storm hit the town Ersama? A. 1989, B. 1979, C. 1969, D. 1999. Take your time, children. Yes, the answer is 1999. Very good. Let's move on to the next question. Second question. How did people in Ersama survive during the storm? A. By eating tender coconut and remaining on the rooftops. B. Remaining in the water. C. By hanging on trees. D. All. Yes, children. The right answer is A. By eating tender coconut and remaining on the rooftops. Congratulations for the students who got the right answer. Let's move on to the next question. Question number 3. Whom did the flood victims send signals to for food help? A. Military helicopters. B. Strangers. C. People of the town. D. Government. Come on, children. The answer is A. Military helicopters. Very good, children. Let's move on to the next question. Question number 4. How did Prashant clean the filth? A. With the help of volunteers. B. With machines. C. Hired sweepers. D. None. The right answer is with the help of volunteers. Very good, children. Very good. Now let's move on to the next question. Question number 5. How did Prashant help the storm victims? A. By arranging food for them. B. Formed a volunteer group and NGO to help widows. C. Helped in fostering families and playing with the orphans. D. All the above. Did you get the answer right, children? The answer is D. All the above. He has helped in all the above ways to bring happiness towards the survivors of the storm victims. Very good, children. Question number 6. What does this lesson speak about? A. Storm. B. A young boy and his ventures. C. Importance of courage and positive approach towards life. D. How to face storms. Children, come on, think about it. The correct answer is C. The importance of courage and positive approach towards life. Congratulations for all the children who got the answer right. Let's move on to the assessment part given in the textbook in the form of think about it. Let us look at some of the questions given in think about it section in your textbook. First one, what havoc has the super cyclone wreaked in the life of people of Orissa? Second question, how was Prashant, a teenager, being able to help the people of his village? Third question, how have the people of the community helped one another? What role do the women of Kalikuda play during these days? Why do Prashant and other volunteers resist the plan to set up institutions for orphans and widows? What alternatives do they consider? Fifth question, do you think Prashant is a good leader? Do you think young people can get together to help people during natural calamities? Think about all these questions and try to get answers. When you get answers, you get a better understanding of the lesson. Now let's move to the talk about it section of the lesson. Talk about the preparedness of the community for a natural disaster. Like you can talk about evacuation plans and rehabilitation, permanent safe shelters, warning systems, relief efforts, building materials to withstand cyclone or flood or earthquake, that is safe housing, people's organization of their own rescue, the survival instinct, etc. Discuss all these points with your friends and talk about them with other people too. Let's move on to the last section of the lesson, suggested reading activity. You can read the other works by Harshmander like A Home on the Street, Paying for His Tea, or Looking Down the Poor. Another book would be Etova Munda Won the Battle, written by Mahashweta Devi. After listening to the lesson, now you will be able to describe the impact of the super cyclone on Ersama and its aftermath. Recognize the courage and bravery exhibited by Prashant during the calamity. Summarize the steps taken by Prashant to rescue and help the survivors of the super cyclone. Explain the importance of forming a community of workers during a calamity. Express gratitude towards individuals who selflessly serve their community in times of need. State the significance of volunteering and working together for the betterment of society. Describe the role of NGOs in providing aid and support to those affected by natural calamities. My dear students, with this, we come to the end of this lesson. Before that, let me share a valuable point with you. The valuable lesson I have learned from the character of Prashant. First one is to have a positive approach towards life. Whatever may happen, we should always be in a positive approach that something better is going to come in your lives. The second one would be that our courage, bravery, and presence of mind will surely help us tide over the worst phases of our lives. And the third lesson I have learned from the character of Prashant is to be empathetic towards the sufferings of our people and help them overcome their miseries. Now tell me what you have learned from the character of Prashant. Keep thinking. Let's meet in another class. Take care, children.